you find all of these, but they're like, they're cards in your poker hand, and you're not sure where you're going to play them or even if you're going to play them.
When we're developing a character, how much are we charting out all of sort of the wonderful and terrible things that have happened to them? Are we doing this beforehand, before we get into the actual story? We're kind of coming up with a checklist of defining moments?
This is one of the confounding qualities of storytelling. We don't have a linear process where we do this first and this second. We sort of try. We have to approach the story somehow. But I think that what we do is I typically have a notion for what is the story. What, maybe in a sentence, what is the story I want to tell? And that tells me something about a character, and also something about the plot. That it's somebody like this trying to, climb out of a well. And so, but then I go back to the character and I say, well, I have more questions for you, character. Where did you come from? How did you get in that well? What were you doing in that field in the first place? And sometimes the answers are really surprising to me. Sometimes they come as sort of epiphanies as I'm out for a run or taking a shower or lying in bed. Often, though, they come as a result of just the ditch digging of sitting and asking these questions. I know that this person, to be interesting, needs to have both strength and weakness. When did they discover they had that strength? When did they first experience the crippling quality of that weakness? And then I bring the character back to the story. And now they're doing more interesting things that I didn't expect them to do because there's more to that character. And so I discover more twists and turns that are potential within, say, the events or the plot of the story. And then I go back to the character. So I think it's a very messy, recursive process. When I am finding these defining moments for a character, I don't know if any of them will end up on screen. At first, I'm just discovering what are these moments. And then, so there are things I can do with a defining moment. I can just know about it, and it's going to inform how I write dialogue for this character. Other times, I'm going to say, if I were writing Pixar's Finding Nemo, I would say, oh, that moment when Marlin's whole family gets eaten by a barracuda, I think we should see that. That's really visual and exciting and tragic. Would Pixar allow us to start a children's movie with that kind of scene? Because if we were to do that, then we would really understand why Marlin is this overprotective father who won't let Nemo have any adventure, have any fun, experience any danger. And we won't view him just as, oh, that neurotic Marlin. We will feel with him. Well, of course, he is a hypervigilant parent because this tragedy struck him and we witnessed it, we experienced it with him. Now, when I first came up with that, I didn't, somebody did. If I was the one who had come up with that, I wouldn't have known at first. Does that make it into the movie or not? There are other moments that we don't see, but a character talks about. They just tell you the story of what happened, or they allude to the story, whatever makes great dialogue. And then other times there are moments right in the middle of the movie where a character transforms. And here I think the great example is Michael Corleone in The Godfather. So we know that Michael is a war hero just back from World War II. He's the son who was not supposed to get mixed up with the family's crime business. He was supposed to go on and maybe be a senator, maybe even a president. But after his father gets gunned down, Michael decides he's got to take matters into his own hands. And so he goes to meet the crime boss who had his father gunned down and the police captain who protects that other crime boss, goes to meet them at an Italian restaurant. He has a gun planted in the bathroom. And he excuses himself from the table, goes back to the bathroom, gets the gun. And then there's this long pause as Michael smooths his hair and sort of allows himself to make his choice. Am I going to step across this threshold from which there can be no return or not? And then the director has set it up so Michael has to pass through 3 sets of doors as he returns into the restaurant from the bathroom, just to emphasize visually, this is a threshold. There is a real boundary of before and after here. Michael walks out into the restaurant, guns down the police captain and the other crime boss, and the rest of the movie, and the next movie, and the next movie, the die is cast for all of those in that moment of the change of Michael's legal status from war hero to killer. There's also a moral and a spiritual change that happens in him. And he thinks he's done this for all the best reasons, for family, but in the end, he becomes someone who kills members of his family for the family. And he is undone by this action, by this choice that he's made in a moment that defines him. So you find that moment and you think, that's probably a scene in the movie. And in fact, that becomes the fulcrum of the whole movie, the moment that defines Michael as who will become the Godfather. So you find all of these, but they're like, they're cards in your poker hand, and you're not sure where you're going to play them or even if you're going to play them. And that is the messy, organic, artistic process, I suppose, of crafting a story. But you can't craft it if you don't have the raw materials from which to craft it. And I think that defining moments are one of those really rich materials that we have to work with when we're telling stories about characters.